Martin, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Awesome. Well, look, I want to start by thanking Dancho and Monica and the entire team at Bisbee for putting this event together. I know it's not easy coordinating people from all over the world. As you mentioned, it's 9:20 p.m. here in Sydney, Australia, where I'm located. And you've got amazing speakers coming right after me from all over the world. So I certainly hope that you guys enjoy what we bring to the table, and hopefully you can take away a lot of valuable tips and tricks that you can implement in your business. As Dancho has mentioned, I'll be covering things related to prospecting, outreach, and automation, and most importantly, how do you save time? Valuable time. That's the most expensive commodity we have. And there's many different ways that you can approach this subject. But most importantly, the way we look at it, the way I've approached it in my entire career, is all about productivity. It's all about output and how much can I get out of myself. Now, I'm not a professional athlete. I wish I was, but the same thing that a professional athlete does, which is, train and work hard and prepare to get the most out of themselves. It's kind of the similar approach that you want to do in business. And when you're prospecting, there are a number of different ways you can save time. The most expensive one is to hire more people, is to bring on as many people in your team as possible, so you can scale your operations and save you time, so you can focus on things that are more valuable to your business. But not all of us can do that, especially in the early stages of a business. I'm assuming that a lot of the audience here are running, small, medium-sized businesses, and every dollar is an important dollar that you need to invest, and you can't just waste it. So hiring a lot of people isn't always an option. So if that's not an option, it's all about, how much can you get out of your team and yourself. And there are, automation is one way that you can save valuable time every day from, doing a lot of manual processing and things like that. But when you are considering outreach and prospecting, there are two elements to it that I think are important to mention. Number one is preparation, and then the next one is automation. And I think that it's important to touch on both because it may sound like a common sense, but a lot of people don't do the preparation. And if you think of athletes again, if these people are not prepared, they're not training, they're not going to succeed. And the same applies to business. So I want to cover both areas, but I want to kind of start by giving you a little bit of the story behind why I got involved in the automation space myself, because I think it's very relevant to the presentation. So what was happening for me around 2016, I was running a consulting firm, a virtual consulting firm, similarly to what we're doing here, where we would meet clients from all over the world and provide mentoring and support to help them grow their companies. What we attempted to do, what we tried to do, is to use LinkedIn as a primary source of leads and prospects that we can contact and speak to and present the opportunity to work with us. And it worked very, very well. LinkedIn is, as you know, the number one B2B social media platform. There is no other like LinkedIn. So when we were approaching small to medium-sized businesses to work with us, we used LinkedIn. But we found ourselves that we had a methodology, we had a process of how to reach out to them, which I will get to in a minute. But we were struggling with the scaling side of things. So at one point, we had about 17 different consultants in our company, and we were struggling to actually do this manual outreach on LinkedIn, and we were looking for some tooling to be able to help us do this, and we couldn't find anything that suited our needs. And the primary need was really, I'm not a technical person, so I wanted something that was easy for me to use on a regular basis, and I was struggling with finding something, so we had something built for ourselves. So we were scratching our own itch. And that's kind of where we found that, we could scale ourselves by using tools rather than hiring more and more staff to do outreach manually, which is what we were doing in the very early days. So I share that story because we kind of fallen into this this space, this category of running an automation company, because that wasn't what I set out to do. I was running a consulting firm. But in order to scale the consulting firm, I needed to find some solutions. We started with virtual assistants that worked for a certain period of time, but it was still not scalable enough. And that's when we moved to tooling. So as I mentioned, there are two key elements when you're actually trying to, win business, grow your business, do it efficiently, and that is the preparation side, and actually then the automation side. So on the preparation side, there are still quite a few elements that are worth mentioning and covering. Number one is that you yourself have to think about as LinkedIn, for example, as a platform, or yourself as your website and your landing pages and so on. You have to think of this as your banner. People are going to see, they're going to get an impression of you very, very quickly. So the first thing that I would say that you need to invest and prepare is how you present yourself in the marketing world. How do you put a LinkedIn profile together that resonates with your clients or prospective clients? And without it, that is almost the number one seed that you need to plant in order for actually to be successful. A lot of people get into the automation side without really just even looking at their own profile. Do I even have a nice picture on? Do I have a story to tell? Is this story valuable to my prospective client? And if none of that helps, if you haven't invested the time and money, think of it as going to a networking event. And if you come up to someone that they're not dressed to the they come in shorts and everybody else is in a suit, like you're gonna overlook them very, very quickly. The same thing happens on LinkedIn. So again, preparation is key, and the first seed that you need to plant is about your profile, is about how you present yourself to the general market. The second, which is just as equally as important, is really to know who your target audience is. Who are you searching for? Who is your ideal client? And you'll be surprised. We have tens of thousands of customers from all over the world. And a lot of people, they think, oh, the product is, for everyone. And that's something that we often fall, as a trap. And we don't realize that our product is not for everyone. Not everyone is interested in our product. Not everyone resonates with our product. So the reality is that you're targeting, in particular, when you're doing searches on LinkedIn, when you're doing things like that, is important. And again, from a preparation point of view, one is your profile, your banner, how you present yourself. The second one is knowing your audience, knowing your customer, and knowing them in detail. LinkedIn does a pretty decent job. It's not perfect in presenting you enough filters, especially with Sales Navigator, to be able to target your audience. But at the end of the day, you have to invest a little bit of time in sifting through, this gold mine. That in order to get that gem, you're supposed to kind of put a little bit of effort and not just do a generic search and hope to God that the people that are in that fit your target audience. So again, as part of the preparation piece, one is your profile. That's seed number one. Two is your targeting. Know your audience. Be very specific. And sometimes even start being by hyper specific, to be only getting results that are less than 100 people, because you can expand from that. But if you're very, very niche in your searches, if you're very, very niche in your targeting, you'll be able to kind of find those gems and start from that and then grow beyond it over time, rather than trying to get a big funnel, get a large number of leads, which could be very irrelevant. Don't think of prospecting as a means for quantity. LinkedIn is more of a quality platform, and if you think of it that way, you'll be more discerning with your searches. You'll be more discerning with who you're trying to approach and why, and also kind of invest yourself in a little bit about who they are and what they do, and would they be the right customer. Last but not least, in the preparation piece, is all about the messaging. Do you speak the lingo that your target audience speaks? Are you communicating and presenting yourself in the way that they want to be receiving it. Just to give you a perfect example, and I say this, often when I'm speaking at different events. If you, for example, approach somebody in the USA and you are not necessarily aggressive, but very direct in saying, hey, I have this product. I think it would be suitable for you. Can you schedule a call? That is very well accepted in the US. If you did that in Australia, people would tell you to get lost very, very quickly. It's just culturally not acceptable. So it's not about just the language of your industry or the way you present yourself or how you liaise with people in your industry. It's all about culture and tone and a lot of those things, and your messaging need has to come through. It's not just about personalization and saying, hello, Martin, how are you? I saw your profile on LinkedIn. It's more about understanding how people in your industry speak. Are you speaking in the right language? Are you speaking in the right tone, in the right market? I'll give you another perfect example. For example, if you actually approach anybody in Singapore and you don't even really do much of an investment in the personalization part, but you just reach out to people and say, hey, I'd love to connect with you. You'll be very surprised that a large percentage of the people, when they respond and they accept your connection request on LinkedIn, they're actually giving you their contact phone numbers. Instantly, they're very open to communicating. They're very open to networking. So cultural differences are just as important as messaging differences. So a lot of people, when they think prospecting and outreach, they're thinking about messaging and personalization, but they're forgetting tonality. They're forgetting culture. They're forgetting different areas that have a huge impact in your response rates. And again, that's in the preparation side. So again, there's three seeds that you need to plant. Number one is all about your profile and how you present yourself. Number one is the targeting and exactly knowing who you're actually approaching. Number three is all about the messaging, and it goes beyond the text. It's all about how you actually approach these people. In which market, Europeans are very different to Americans, to South Americans, to Middle Eastern, to Asians, so you've got to understand who you're talking to and speak to them in their voice, in their language, and in the way that they like to be spoken to. So that's kind of the preparation side. Obviously, we can dive deeper, and I'm happy to answer a lot of questions that are covered, that are covering in that preparation side. But let's look at the automation side for one moment. From the automation point of view, what most people really think about is really volume. And that's fine. That's an approach that a lot of people take. And what they do is they go and spam as many people as possible and hope to God that there's a small percentage of people who do respond positively. I think that that is what why automation has been frowned upon for some time. And people don't realize that you need to treat your outreach in the same way that you would do when you're going to an actual real conference or a summit or a networking event, where you're actually presenting yourself, you're introducing yourself, you're speaking in a certain voice. You're not really selling straight away. You invest a little bit of time in learning about them and understanding what they do and how they, what their interests are and stuff like that. I know that's sometimes unrealistic. I mean, you go to a networking event, there's 100 people, you probably talk to 10, so you're missing out on the 90. I totally understand and respect that, but you've got to think about relationship building first before you think about volume and automation. If you really invest yourself in the preparation side, and you also invest yourself in actually investing time in building relationships and not looking to pitch straight away and not looking to sell straight away, you'll yield better relationships, better results, and longer lasting customers. These burn and churn people like and lists, it's just not productive. It's not really a valuable thing that you should be doing long term. And I urge everybody to really think about, building those relationships as if you were doing it in the real world, but automation just helps you scale. And that's what actually people misunderstand about automation altogether. All that automation does is exactly the same that you would do if you were doing it manually. All it does is really scale it, blow it up for you. But you need to get those fundamentals right. If you don't get the fundamentals right, you're going to miss out on really building some great relationships and so on. The other thing that people misunderstand as well is that when you're approaching people at scale, not everybody's ready to buy today. You as a customer, if somebody pitched you something, even if you were receptive to the pitch, your decision-making process, might be the wrong time. You might be making that decision in 6 months from now. But again, if you are not building those relationships as a receiver of these messages, you got to think about, when am I going to be ready? And the reality is that most people are not ready to buy anything straight away, unless you're very lucky and you approach somebody that has a pain point and that they're ready to make a decision on that tomorrow. It's just unrealistic in real life, let alone, at scale. So what I'm preaching and what I'm suggesting to all of the clients or anybody that listens is that you are truly investing in those relationships, and you use automation to scale, but you also got to think and understand the timing that people have in making those decisions. And it's not just about the value of the transaction, whether it's $1 million deal or $100 deal. It's all about the timing. Am I speaking to them at the right time? Am I speaking to them in the right tone and in the right voice? And do they even have this problem? And if I have no interest in investing myself in learning about whether they have this problem or not, I'm never going to be able to sell. So overall, what we suggest, what we strongly recommend is, yes, use automation, because that is the number one way that you can multiply yourself. You can go, I remember when I was doing outreach manually on LinkedIn back in 2015, 2016, I was literally investing 3 to 4 hours a day, just cutting and pasting, approaching people manually. I didn't even know that there was automation and things that they could do follow-ups and all of these kinds of things completely on autopilot that didn't even exist then. The industry has come a long way, but where we are today is that not only can you build meaningful relationships, but you can do it at scale, you can do it globally, you can do it virtually, and you can do it remotely without ever meeting anybody. Look at us, we're meeting here in this virtual system, and we're able to communicate and express and work together potentially. So when it comes to now the nitty-gritty of the user of our automation, one of the key things that we are very proud in our platform, meetalfred.com, is that we are multi-channel. And the reason why we moved into the multi-channel space and not just LinkedIn, which is where we originated, is because the reality is that not everybody is on LinkedIn. Maybe you are, maybe you're on your phone, on the app all the time, and you have time for this. Other people, they don't check their LinkedIn for weeks at a time. So when you're trying to communicate with people, you might not be getting the right channel being LinkedIn. They might be on email. They might be easier to communicate. They might be on mobile and you want to send them an SMS, or you want them to send them a Twitter DM. All of that can be fully automated now on our platform. And that's kind of how you're not only saving time by doing all of these things at scale, but you're also touching them in the channel that they're probably most responsive to, which might not be LinkedIn. It might be just their SMS, or it might be their email, or it might be Twitter, or whatever else. So it's all about, really, I think the future is all about, yes, automation, but it's really about communicating with people in the channel that they're mostly invested in, and giving enough people time to breathe. Some people are just creating campaigns and they're sending a follow-up tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. Maybe they received your first one, they just haven't had time to respond. Maybe they're very busy like you are. So, try to invest the time in creating campaigns, in creating sequences that are timely, that are multi-channel, that are personalized, that are targeted. But the reality is that you got to give time for people to respond. I mean, I'm a very busy CEO of a company. I respond to people hopefully normally within 24 hours, but sometimes it takes 2 to 3 days, and I just don't get the time. So for me to receive a follow-up so quickly the next day, it's like, hang on a minute, like, give me time, and maybe that's an Australian thing. Maybe it's so different in the US or different markets, but that has been my experience. So the reality of it all is that, to use automation, I'm more than happy to kind of show you through our platform, but I don't think that's necessary. I think that what's key here is that you really think about the time that you need to invest at the beginning for the preparation side, and then use automation. But all the automation does, and let's be very clear and transparent, all the automation does is it actually, superpowers whatever your outreach strategy is. And to be honest, if you have a crappy profile, you have bad targeting, and you have really bad messaging, you're just scaling bad stuff and you're going to get bad results. So to me, the automation side of things is almost the last thing you need to think about. Don't think of it as the first thing, think of it as the last thing. And once you've proven that whatever you're doing is working, it's resonating with your audience, it's delivering some results, then you put fuel to the fire and automate it, and sit back and relax. And basically what automation tools do, like ours, is essentially do all the grunt work that you were going to do manually, and so you can focus on only the replies, whether you're getting a reply from a LinkedIn message or a LinkedIn email or an email reply or a Twitter DM. All you need to focus on is really kind of managing those conversations after all the follow-ups have been concluded from the campaign's perspective. So that's kind of about what I wanted to share. There are numerous things, a lot of data that I can share with you as to the best things, the best practices, and so on and so forth. But the reality is that no two campaigns, no two users of our platform are the same. They don't have the same profile. They don't target the same audience, and they don't communicate in the same way because they're targeting different people from different places. So I can give you an overview of what things that work. Just for example, the typical campaign that gets the highest response rate has at least a minimum of 7 steps in a sequence. And that can be anywhere from viewing someone's profile to sending a connection request to sending follow-ups. And the average time that these 7 steps takes is normally 45 days. So a lot of people create campaigns that are shrunk, that are, 1, 2, 3 weeks long, and they're just hammering people, and they just don't work. So to give you a little bit of data is, have a comprehensive, lengthy outreach follow-up campaign. Do it in multi-channels, try to see where they're responsive, and also extend it out, give some breathing space to these people. And don't just message people, invest yourself in liking their content, commenting on their content, which can also be automated, by the way. Liking their profile, following them, doing things that, bring attention, that, like I've seen, for example, a lot of people have this misconception that having a personalized connection request gives you better response rate. And the matter of fact is that we are seeing now a plateau of response rates of people sending blank, empty connection requests, and they get just as good as response if they're personalized. And the reason why they work is because it's the right profile, targeting the right person, and the other person doesn't feel like you're pitching straight away. So again, I think I covered enough. I'll let Dancho and the team take over, and happy to answer anybody's questions. I hope that's been valuable.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martin. I could have these conversations for hours. When we're listening to you, it's really like, but wait, that's so true. But wait, that's so true. But I do wanted to spare some time for the questions. There is one question that's for you, Martin. And what was your #1 challenge to grow Meet Alfred from a LinkedIn messaging automation to a multi-channel social media management platform?
Awesome. Great question. Well, the first one is the technical side. I'm not a technical founder. I can't code to save my life. So the first thing was really all about finding a great team that has the capacity to understand, what a user needs. And to be honest, that's kind of one of the key benefits of me running this company, is that I'm not technical. So I always look at things from a customer perspective. I look at where the buttons are. Is this user friendly? Is this not? And so on and so forth. So I'm bombarding my technical team, who engineers hate UI and UX. They just hate making things pretty and useful. They just want it to work. And I understand that. But, the reality is to move from just being a LinkedIn automation platform to being multi-channel, it's more complex than actually just adding more channels. The reality is all about, can you create a conversation through different channels that's meaningful and productive? And yes, there's a technical element around it, and that's difficult to do. But the reality is that we felt like the innovation within LinkedIn kind of became stale. There was, we were the first ones to offer messaging, the first ones to offer follow-ups, the first ones to offer emails, the first ones to offer, engaging with LinkedIn posts on autopilot, to do it on LinkedIn events, and so on and so forth. We ran out of kind of things to do with LinkedIn. So we felt like the right move, and and not everybody was getting a lot of responses. So moving multi-channel, it just kind of opened up the opportunity for people to speak to others where they are, where they live. And personally, I'm always on email. You hit me up on LinkedIn, I'll answer, once a week, because I just don't have the time for it. But I am more productive on email. So I hope that kind of gives an insight of the challenge, but it was mostly technical in order to deliver a seamless experience from a receiver's perspective. I always look at it as, when I get these messages, are they seamless? Are they, correct? And are they timely?
And one more question, Martin. As I saw that you have thousands and thousands of users across 87 countries. I really like the part with the minimum 7-step sequence, and over a period of 45 days. So you're not in a rush, but trying to build a relationship. But one of the questions was like, what results can be expected on average? And I am sure that this depends based on country, based on continent, even because you're in Australia and Europe and the US. But any indications, like from experience, from backend, I'm sure you can start looking at some data. What is not expected, an average acceptance rate or something like that you can share with us?
Look, I can share a lot of information, a lot of data, but I don't want to bore people, because at the end of the day, it's really all about you and your audience and who you're targeting. But let's put that aside. Let's give you some insights of, the kind of data we have access to. So I would say that the average person with an average profile targeting, a specific audience, and let's say there is a good synergy between you and them, you can expect on average somewhere around a third of your target audience responding and accepting a connection request.
33%.
Anywhere between 25 and 35%. I can tell you that the higher your role, the higher your position in the company, the higher your acceptance rate. So for example, nice. If I'm approaching from a CEO perspective to another CEO, I can easily get 70-80%, connection request acceptance. Whereas somebody who is part of the sales team approaching people, they don't want to be sold. So, they're going to have a lower acceptance rate. But on average, as I said, 25 to 35%, is acceptable. I would say that because you can scale it, you can quickly build volume. So the way we always recommend is, let's say you're sending 100 connection requests per day, as an example, and you're getting 25 to 30 people accepting. Don't worry about, following up with those people straight away. Just give it some time to breathe and follow up when it's due course. But if you think about 25 to 30 every single day coming into your pipeline, who are the right audience for your product, and you then develop a relationship through automation and follow-ups over time, what's going to happen is that if you do the right thing and you invest in 7+ steps in your sequence, 45 days or so, by the, the 60th day, by the 90th day, you're going to be overwhelmed with response, because all this follow-up has been building up, all this volume has been building up. So try not to look for results so quickly. Try to build up over a 3-month period, and measure your success after the 90-day period, because that volume will build up over time. I also suggest making sure that you run A/B tests, run small tests of 100 to 200 to 500 people to see if different messages resonates with your audience differently. Don't just dump 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 leads into a campaign if you don't even know if it works. There's a little bit of investment at the beginning, and that's kind of why I mentioned the preparation side is more important than anything else, to be honest, because automation is, you want to use our tool or somebody else's tool, we'll somewhat do the same things. But the reality is that no matter, it's what you put in that gives you the output and the quality.
Got it. Martin, I can see 5 more questions in parallel, but unfortunately we are running out of time, because the next speaker is scheduled to discuss right now. What I would do is that I will collect this additional question and then send it to you. So if you want them to follow up on them individually, but so far, those were the questions that we can cover up.
I'm happy for anybody to reach out to me directly. My email is martin@meetalfred.com. You can message me your questions. I'm happy to answer them, through the platform or personally. I'm here to help anybody that's in the audience. So don't worry. I'm more than happy to answer all your questions. Just reach out to me direct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin, for the wonderful presentation. And thank you, everybody, for the lovely questions and feedback in the chat.